Hello and welcome to Pearl Magazine. Around the world, more than 50 countries produce and export coffee. Many of us know some of these top producers: Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia, and Ethiopia. Pearl Magazine's Tina Jiang talks to some local coffee farmers who are trying to put the name Hong Kong on that list.
Like many city dwellers, we're always sleep deprived. How can we have more energy? Then coffee comes to mind.
Edwin Lee is a cafe operator and also a coffee lover.
Those who love coffee naturally would like to brew coffee themselves, and then they move on to roasting raw beans. Next, they want to have their own coffee trees.
In 2008, Edwin started trying to plant a few coffee trees at a local farm near Fanling. The attempt was not a success.
I have to blame myself for being lazy. I didn't spend enough time taking good care of them, so I only got a small batch of green beans. Not many of them could be used to brew coffee. The flavor is a bit far away from specialty grade. Not too awful to drink, but compared to the coffee from other origins, it doesn't have a rich taste.
In the succeeding years, Edwin chose to focus more on his cafe business and subsequently had to leave the coffee trees pretty much unattended.
I used to visit the plants twice a month, but after some time it became once a month, and then once every 2 months. I felt sorry for my coffee trees.
Luckily, a farmer offered to help.
I'm a farmer. I'm previously a IT guy. I like nature and I like farming, and I like coffee, so I start planting coffee trees and doing the coffee business here.
Since last year, Mike Sim has been working full-time, taking care of the 20-something coffee trees in Fanling, including those planted by Edwin.
Hong Kong is not the ideal place for planting coffees. We don't have that high altitudes, but we can still find some spots with the suitable microclimates, just like a cooler place and not too hot and cool, shiny, just like here, the riverside under the trees.
In general, a coffee's flavor profile becomes more distinctive as its growing altitude increases. The world's finest coffees are mostly found at elevations of at least 1,200 meters, while the highest peak in Hong Kong is only 957 meters. But still, Mike believes that the city has its advantages.
Many Hong Kong people like drinking coffee, and specialty coffees being more popular. I think it would be nice, it would be amazing if Hong Kong have some coffee plants here and have harvest, and we can do the rest of processing like roasting and brewing. So it's a seed-to-cup experience.
Autumn and winter are seasons of harvest.
Last year I got 3 kilograms of coffee beans, so I'm looking for another 6 kilograms this year.
This morning, Mike picked around 700 grams of coffee cherries. Next, he processes them.
We do different kinds of coffee processing. It's like wash and natural and honey process and the most trendy fermentations. And each of these different processing techniques will give different taste to the coffee.
The cherries will first go through a pulper to get rid of their outer skin.
Traditionally, farmers do wet process and dry process, which is put in the water or put it under the sunlight. I think if we just do it in the traditional way, it's hard to find a unique flavor.
Generally, processing is one of 2 ways to improve a coffee's quality. The other way is to improve the farming practice, which usually takes years. Mike has been working on processing.
I tested with different fermentation time And I also tried different ingredients put into the coffee beans. The results are interesting. The best mark of the last year's experiment coffee, I do the anaerobic fermentation together with a sea straw and a herbs, which is quite common in Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan. The taste is quite good acidity and it's quite clear.
Coffee beans are generally divided into two main types, Arabica and Robusta. Over 60% of the world's coffee production comes from Arabica cultivators. Due to their differences in flavor, Arabica beans are more commonly consumed by coffee lovers, and Robusta tend to be used to make instant coffee and other coffee products. The species grown at Mike's farm is Caturra, a popular type of Arabica coffee. It all started with the 2 coffee seedlings received by the owner of the farm. Yip Se Ching is the farm owner. He started in 1999.
I think it's 2002 or 2003. One of my friends and his friend is come from Japan and give him some coffee beans, some raw bean, and he started the seed to grow some coffee seedling. And after 1 year, he got a several seedling and give me 2.
He says the world's top coffee-producing nations are all in the tropics, and obviously, Japan is not one of them. After some research, he and his friends traced the origin of the coffee seedlings back to Brazil.
I'm a quite young farmer at that time, and I would like to try grow different kinds of stuff. After 2 to 3 years, I got some berry and then start to treat the coffee bean and then roast the coffee. But the experience is awful, and it's got totally burned, and the taste is not okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Yip believes that the coffee he produced is only about a 5 or a 6.
It's quite difficult to compare with brew, geisha, such kind of coffee. I can't imagine how to sell it in a very, very expensive price. If I got money, I would buy brew, not the local coffee. I think just Hong Kong lover, they will put money in this local coffee.
More than 50 countries around the world produce coffee, but the majority of global output comes from the top producers, such as Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia, and Ethiopia.
All of the coffee growing area is in third country. Very low, cheap labor, cheap land, and they can produce lots of coffee bean as economic produce for the market. I think it's a very good experience to train the local farmers or local coffee roaster to have their own style. But in Hong Kong, the land is very expensive. Also, the labor cost is also expensive. So I don't think this is a viable business.
However, one barista thinks differently.
I wouldn't say it's really good because Hong Kong has limitation in climate, soil and other aspects. But actually, the flavor can be altered through different processing methods in the lab. We used to believe that winey and tropical fruity flavors could only be found in coffee origins like Ethiopia and Panama. But now, they could be found in our local coffee too. We've never expected that we could make it and it could be this good.
Gary Au has 3 shops, a coffee brand, and a roastery in the city. Since last year, he's been cooperating with Mike, the coffee farmer, to process his coffee beans.
After anaerobic fermentation, the coffee usually gets a creamier, thicker body and a good level of acidity, with a hint of wine or tropical fruits. We invited some barista to do cupping, and it got 80 to 84 points, just reached the specialty grade.
Early next year, Mike is organizing some workshops for the public to come and learn more about local coffee.
There's a way to turn it into a business, but it's not going to be a production. We keep it as an education or marketing campaign like this. Just letting people in and experience everything. It gives them more value than just providing them the coffee bean.
On this day, Mike is attending a coffee event in Central. He has a lot to share and learn.
I've been hiding in the farm for almost a whole year, and then finally I have a chance to tell the public what I'm doing. It's amazing meeting all the Hong Kong best baristas. It's the most important thing for me as a coffee farmer. I need to know the latest information from the industry. 我喺粉嶺嗰度，我喺粉嶺，我喺澳farm過嚟。你做咩運動啊？我 Patura 嚟嘅。
In recent years, more and more specialty cafes have popped up around the city. Edwin Lee has witnessed the changes taking place.
The coffee culture of Hong Kong is not very laid back. In the past, people had coffees at restaurants. When you order food, you get a free drink, milk tea, coffee, or lemon tea. But now more and more people come for the coffee, not only the lunch or tea set. So it's a time when the culture gets mature and more acceptable.
Now, Edwin still keeps a few coffee seedlings outside his cafe.
Many people say a lot of things can be imported, and why grow your own? We're not trying to make a huge business. We hope you understand that many people are working hard to make you this cup of coffee. It's not just an energy booster. If you learn more about it, you would be thankful to the farmer and the barista who made it for you. That is the true value of coffee.
When we come back, coffee growing on a larger scale. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pearl Magazine. Hong Kong isn't known as a coffee grower, but a group of people are trying their best to start mini plantations. They're growing beans in a rural village on abandoned farmland. Tina Jiang reports that growing coffee is all about the right brew of research, hard work, and patience. A 1.5 ferry ride from Ma Lu Shu Pier takes you to Lai Chi Wo, a small village situated on the northeastern coast of the New Territories. Lai Chi Wo was once a prosperous Hakka village. Many villagers were farmers. In the 1960s, the residents gradually started moving away to more urban areas for better living conditions. Eventually, the farmlands were abandoned, until recently.
When we firstly start to establish our farm here, the farmlands have already been abandoned for 14 years. So everywhere is trees.
Katie Chick has been working in local farms and doing different types of farming experiments for over 10 years. Since 2017, she has been operating this coffee farm in the village as part of the Rural Revitalization Project initiated by the University of Hong Kong. Last year, the project received special recognition for sustainable development by United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, more commonly known as UNESCO.
We are now in the experimental farm for sustainable agriculture in Lai Chi Wo, and one of the experiments here is the agroforestry coffee production in Hong Kong.
In order to preserve the high ecological value of the area, Katie and her team had to find a way of farming without chopping down too many trees. Coffee came to mind.
Coffee is well known about the shade tolerance, nature. So we introduce coffee growing here.
Now there are around 500 coffee trees growing at this farm.
When we firstly start our experiment, I think a lot of people, they are not very positive about growing coffee in Hong Kong. But Hong Kong actually is within the geographical location of coffee belt in the world. And so in theory, Hong Kong is suitable for coffee growing.
During the last few years, more and more coffee species have been introduced.
The oldest coffee trees in Lai Chi Wo now is from Cattery Farm. And then when we're expanding the experiment, we're trying to introduce species from other locations, such as Katimo from Yunnan. And we also have Typica and Katura from Taiwan. And the newest variety that we have is Geisha from Panama.
Last year was the first time they harvested.
Last year we got 10 kilogram green beans. We hope that we can have 3 to 4 times production this year.
One of the challenges is manpower.
The coffee tree is not difficult to plant, but during the harvesting period, you need a lot of manpower to do the cherry picking. We have 2 part-time farmers working here to take care of the coffee trees, and then 2 part-time cherry pickers, and one of them is me.
After picking the cherries, Katie does a simple sorting.
When we finish the harvesting, we'll find some leaves, twigs, molded cherry beans, the overripe one, and also some green one or the damaged one. So we need to remove unwanted cherries from the good one.
She says that professional coffee cherry pickers usually set a target and are very selective about the cherries they pick.
These 2 colors, the sugar level of the cherry is the highest. For the green one, the sugar has not been accumulated. If you collect too many, green cherry for processing and making the green beans, it will affect the quality. And also for the overripe one, it will also twist the taste and the flavor of the coffees.
The best cherries are brought to a rooftop for the next step.
This is the sun-dried ground of our coffee farm. So you can see that all the coffee we have harvested and already processed, we will bring them there and then to be dried out under the sun. The Lai Chi Wo coffee, I think that the taste and flavor is not very consistent and stable yet because we are still experimenting different processing methods. But in general, it has quite a good level of fruity notes.
Last year, Katie partnered with Edwin Lee, a cafe operator, to process her raw coffee beans.
Lai Chi Wo had its first batch of coffee last year. I was helping with the roasting, and we made some small drip bags. Around 100 to 200 people tried it.
Edwin was one of the first few cafe operators in the city who introduced an in-house roastery. Hong Kong's coffee has a nutty flavor, a little bit like cocoa, chocolate. Acidity is not too strong, and that's exactly what Hong Kong people like. I think medium roast will be better. It gives the beans enough caramelization, so coffee tastes sweet. Back on the coffee farm in Lai Chi Wo, Katie is also running a coffee plant nursery.
All the coffee seedlings we grow, replanted in our farms are from here. So our farmers, they will use the fresh coffee seeds to establish the seedlings. And then we will transplant it into a plot for around, we will maintain it for around 1 year.
These seedlings will later be transplanted to the farmland, replacing any dead coffee trees.
We have around a few hundred maintaining here. We are planning to expand the coffee farms a bit bigger. At the same time, some of the coffee growers in Lai Chi Wo and also in other locations in Hong Kong, they will buy the seedling from our nursery. We are having a bigger and bigger group of community, coffee growers in Hong Kong.
Now Lai Chi Wo has over 700 flourishing coffee trees growing on 2 coffee farms. One is operated by Hong Kong U, and the other is operated by the villagers.
The villagers one, they organize regular farm tours that general public can join. And our farm, we mainly have some, scheduled and organized coffee course and coffee trainings.
Part of the course is held in a classroom, and Katie and other instructors are giving lectures this weekend in Causeway Bay.
This is a course specially designed to focus on coffee value chain, a very new concept in Hong Kong. The student will go through the whole process to understand what is the sustainability issues behind the coffee production, coffee trading, coffee processing, as well as the coffee consumption. We will talk about natural resources management, also fair trade.
6 students are taking the course this year. Some of them are coffee roasters, coffee shop operators, and some are just coffee lovers.
The most impressive experience was our practice in Lei Chi Wo. We did the harvest and processing. Very rarely will we have a chance to do this. And then cupping, to taste the coffee we made ourselves.
Olivia Tam is one of the students. She works in environmental education.
Coffee is a crop and also an ingredient. I hope to know the origins of our food. How could sustainable coffee protect the producers? How can we balance between production and our nature? These are the things I want to learn.
Today, the students are taking a professional tasting class, or what they call cupping. Dixon Ip is one of the instructors and also an internationally certified cupping judge. He has been working in the coffee industry for more than 10 years. He thinks the course is very unique in a city like Hong Kong.
Of course, you can go to a coffee farm overseas, see the trees, maybe the flowering, maybe the cherries, but you will never have the experience of get involved in the harvesting and also spend time on the processing, because the processing usually takes 4 to 6 weeks' time. According to what I have tasted today, I am happy to announce I think the Lei Chi Wo coffee has reached the specialty level. We call it 80-point coffee from a tasting perspective.
Dixon also runs coffee roasting and tasting classes.
If we don't link the Lei Chi Wo coffee to academic, we don't want to see a coffee farm become a tourist location. This is an experimental coffee farm. I think this is the right path.
It usually takes 5 years before a coffee tree can provide stable yields. Dixon believes that local coffee still has more room to grow.
Lei Chi Wo coffee is still very young. It's a little bit more than 3 years. Sometimes we have cherry from plants less than 3 years. So in academic terms, the coffee density is usually very low. If we continue grow the coffee correctly and processing with interesting methods, it will go up to higher points in the future.
That's the show. Thanks for watching. Next week, a look at how COVID-caused unemployment is pushing some young people in Hong Kong into the sex trade. See you then. Good night.